the evolution, I would say we went from being a small countryside kind of a community to basically a metropolis. We've had the evolution of farming, countryside, to major developments of corporations, industries, shops, a great big evolution in terms of changes in advancement.
Hialeah, a city in northwest Miami-Dade County, was created by famed aviator Curtis Wright as a planned community. This small rural community attracted many who were priced out of the real estate market in places such as Miami Beach or Coral Gables during the 1920s land boom. Hialeah grew rapidly in prominence with the construction of a world-class racetrack hosting renowned horses such as Seabiscuit. In the 1930s, Hialeah continued to grow. Amelia Earhart chose Hialeah as her final American departure site on her ill-fated journey around the world. In the 1940s and 50s, Hialeah continued as an attractive option for families. Castro's revolution in 1959 brought the first wave of Cuban exiles. This exodus continued, whether by boat, plane, or raft. This influx of Cuban immigrants transformed the city of Hialeah from a primarily white, rural community to an urban metropolis, and the fastest growing city in the United States.
At the age of 32 years old, I came over to the United States seeking for a better life, freedom, because in my own country I felt like a foreign and like an alien inside of my own country, because I couldn't stand the situation in the island. With the dictatorship, they pretend to tell us what to do and what to think, and they decide for us, they talk for us, and there's no freedom at all. I have a lot of friends here in Miami, and I call them, and they say, come on over, come to Miami. Here's your friends, we're all here. That's why I decided to come here. At first I was living in the southwest area, but employment was mostly in Hialeah or Medley or in this area where the school is right now. So in order to avoid me to travel, to start driving, I moved over to Hialeah.
How Hialeah has changed?
Very drastically. First, the population was more American than Spanish. And Spanish was used anyway, but American people, they were all over Hialeah. At first, the area where I used to live, around Palm Avenue on 23rd Street, that area has been always crowded with bad people. And at first, when I came here, there was a lot of crime here. Palm Avenue was mostly bad people, prostitution, people wandering around drunk, no employees, not working, not employed, you know. Mayor of the city, they enforced the law to an extent that crime was drastically not removed, but controlled. And now Hialeah is much bigger than it was. I congratulate the local government for controlling the crime.
I was born in Marianao, which is a city close to La Habana, Cuba. That was on 1983. I came to the U.S. in 1995. So I'm 27 years old right now. I came when I was 12. When I came, it was funny because the first day that I stepped in United States and they drive me from the airport to the house, I thought that like I was in another world. Everything was completely clean, everything was like all the new buildings. So for me, I was in shock the first week completely. They would drive me around and I was just look. And every time I came to Hialeah, I think was after the first month when we came to visit some of my mother's friend. And it was completely different for what you can see now. The streets were smaller. Okeechobee example, it was really small. We used to have a walkway, you know, where you could walk around by the stores. There's a lot different, you know, more Walgreens, more Publix, more pharmacies to go. The street too. Before it used to rain and all the streets would look like an entire lake, like you had to come out in canoe. Now they have fixed everything, like the streets look really well. Almost like every street on the east of Hialeah have been remade so that when it rains, it doesn't make like a lagoon around the area.
How long have you lived in Hialeah?
I've been in Hialeah a little over 20 years. I've been living here.
Have you lived in the same neighborhood?
I lived in the same neighborhood. I wasn't originally from here. When I first came from Cuba, I lived in the north and then we moved here. There's been a big difference in the influx of our neighbors that have come and gone. I remember being young and remembering that most of our neighbors were not only American, but they were also very elderly. Our relationship was always good with our neighbors at that time. My parents obviously only spoke Spanish and they only spoke English, so the communication was limited, but it was cordial. And it wasn't until we had the influx of the Latin coming in and the Cuban migration and having the Spanish neighbors that the relationship changed.
Yeah, than now. The relationship is better than
Absolutely. It's a warmer kind of relationship. We know the culture, we know the history. Our people share many, many sorrows, many pains, many joy, and we relate to that.
Years ago?
The population 20 years ago was predominantly American. The restaurants were American, the businesses were American. The malls and the stores that we had at the time were the commercial, older, established stores. There was the most American restaurants, and they catered to American menu. Your regular steak and potato kind of food, and you could get Spanish food in the carreta. I don't know if you've heard about the carreta restaurant?
Of course, the carreta owner are from Cuba.
Oh, see? Yes. That's when the original Spanish food started being developed, and obviously it continues to grow, but as we saw the change in people started accepting the rice, the beans, and the pork of the Spanish cuisine.
The American people used to eat the Spanish food at that time?
No, no. That old population of retired old community that used to be in Hialeah was very much against that new cuisine coming into our community, and it was not really looked upon as something that they would enjoy. It has been revolved and evolved throughout the years and much accepted now. I'll tell you, Maritza, if I had to do it all over again, looking back, I would spend the next 20 years saying that everything that I've experienced has been worthwhile, and it's been a growth experience, and I wouldn't change my past 20 years. And I have to tell you that I'm looking forward to the next 20 years here in Hialeah and watching the continued evolution of our community and our city grow.